Hello everybody, it is Caleb, and I wanted to show you guys my collection of both custom Unreal Engine DMX fixtures in addition to some of the fixtures that they provide the back end for, and you just have to fill in the details. And so the customized fixtures would be like this QPix where I had to model and texture everything, and the Astera Titan tubes, but I'll get into all that. The Unreal Engine 5 plugin fixtures would be a bulk of the moving lights. So these washes, the spots, and yeah, we'll get to all this as soon as I turn off these directional lights and we can get started. So first up is the ROX B2 blinder, and I did put some sort of lens texture over the front of this, that honeycomb that it has. Just so that if you wanted to get in close, you can. So these are multi-instance blinders that also do RGB control and basically do whatever effect you would like them to do or whatever effect the console tells them to do. The beam meshes are separate, so they're not blended together, but the light is blended together, so it's an average of the 2 pixels. The dimming works pretty smooth on them. And yeah, you can do whatever you want them to do. Let's put these away. Next is the ROX S2 strobe. And these are very bright if you use all of the cells together. So I do have separate control, pixel control of the strip zones. And if you get in here and look, you can see that I did add the 3D shape of the fixture, but you don't have to worry about all of these being separate meshes, because if I zoom in, they're just textures. It's a baked texture on there. And so with these, you do have separate control of the strips versus the centric strip versus the RGB plate, which has RGB control, where the strips that I just pointed out do not. So you can make whatever effect you want. The rainbows look half decent, but because it averages everything together, if I were to do a perfectly offset 360 rainbow, it would just look white to the light in the beam mesh. So you can have fun with these, make whatever effect you tell them to. And then the strips also have pixel control, although the way they are laid out in MA3D looks, or in MA3 looks somewhat like this. I'm not sure what's going on with that 1 pixel, probably just selected out of order, but you are going to have to work some magic on selecting the pixels in MA3 when you do this. The centric strip also offers pixel control, and the master intensity, I'm not going to show this part, but the master intensity to the entire fixture also offers control, dimming control of the entire fixture. I'll try to show that at the end. So yeah, these are fun fixtures as well. Let's put these away. And now for the Elian QPix. I did go a little bit nuts on building the textures to them. And so these offer pixel control as well, and you can zoom in and see the actual diode getting brighter or dimmer. I also did enlarge the haze plane, or the haze bush as I call it, which is just 2 planes next to each other that are intersecting, that carry the beam mesh. So you can do RGB control with these as well. And the rainbows look a lot better because each cell is applied to its own beam mesh. Each beam mesh has its own cell, so you don't get any averaging together. The only time you do get averaging together is when these lights are far away from everything. But if they are close to something, you will notice that it does actually have 1 spotlight per instance. So I was working through this, trying to remember what I did, and it seems like the answer is simply by putting a very short attenuation radius on here. I did have it so that it would detect if it were close to an object or not, but I found that to be a little bit not correct. And so what I did is just put such a short attenuation radius on here that by the time the spotlights blend together, they disappear anyway. So they never really get the chance to blend together. If they did, it would probably slow down the frame rate a whole lot. But we could see that by doing this, if you have an object close, it'll see those lights. If you have an object far, it'll see the average of the light. But they can do whatever you want them to do. Next is the Astera Titan tube. These feature a point light that you see on the ground, in addition to a haze sort of tree that you can't see from above, but I did that just to save performance. So these have RGB control as well, and will let you do whatever effect you want. They average all of the pixels together, so rainbows don't look quite as sharp as on the QPixes. So yep, these were actually, the Titan tube is the first fixture I made. And so because I didn't bake the textures, there is some imperfections here in the way the materials overlap. And then another problem you might notice is that this seam right here between the first and second pixel isn't quite correct. So I'm hoping to get that fixed in a future update. Next is the GLP X4 bar in single pixel mode. And these offer tilt control as well, but one update I need to make is adding a fade time, a minimum fade time to the tilt, because you'll see it just snaps back to that position. So if you want it to fade, you have to do that in the console, otherwise it'll snap straight to that position. They do offer zoom control. You can see the area that the light effects got wider when I zoomed the lights out down here at the bottom. And then RGB control on that as well, per pixel. And you can do whatever effect you want. A work in progress that I've kind of procrastinated up until I was able to finish this strobe S2 is the JDC1 fixture. And so this is in compressed mode right now, but you do have two different dimmer channels. One is for the centric strobe portion, and the other one is for the RGB plate. They do offer RGB control as well and change the material on the actual lens. And yeah, these ones are fun fixtures. Moving on to our DMX plugin content, I have quite a few fixtures that I've made, and most of these operate pretty much the same. So I might go over the Sharpies in a second, but I want to start with the Elian Proteus Maximuses. These have a color wheel that you would expect to see on an actual fixture, where you can do partial colors, in addition to CMY color mixing to allow mixing of colors together. In addition to dimming control that is accurate to what you would find on the fixture. When they point directly at the camera or your eyes, they do look pretty good. They don't harm the frame rate too much, and I think they look good in almost any color. The gobos are accurate to what you would find on the fixture. However, gobo rotations are currently not supported, and I'm working on that. It just requires a little bit more research. but the gobos are accurate to what you would find on gobo wheel 1. Now that's another shortcoming, is I can't get gobo wheel 2 just yet. Hopefully in the near future I'll be able to mix these two gobos together. And then in our washes, those operate pretty similar to one another, obviously without any gobo control, but they do have CMY color mixing, or sorry, RGB color mixing. And so these are up on bottom is the GLP impression, up top is the R2 wash. They basically operate all the same. The zooming does work and actually widens the light. And I think they look pretty good when they are pointed at the camera and the optics are visible. And I think these work great. So right now we're sitting at 40 frames a second. If I were to turn this off, we would jump up to about 80. And so what I want to do is play with all of these all at the same time. So let's turn on our Roxes. Our other Roxes down to 26. Our QPixes brings us to 24 frames a second. Our Titan tubes being on takes us to 25 frames a second. X4 bars, 24 frames a second. And typically the wider these fixtures are, the more frame rate they're going to draw. And then our JDC ones. Want to do our orange and blue chase. There we go. So looking at everything at once, we're sitting at about 24 frames a second. Let's bring in the other movers. And somehow that helps our frames a second. Not sure how. I didn't turn off anything. But yeah, frame rate honestly is not bad. If I black out, it takes effect pretty fast. And restoring from it works as expected. So let me show you real quick the Roby. That was all in programmed cues. But let me just show you some of the Roby gobos. These are the BMFLs. So if I tilt these down and then start spinning their gobos, you can see that the gobos are accurate as well to what you would find on the fixture. Although once I get really wide, it seems like you can make out the texture and all the pixels in the texture of the gobo. So that's one thing I'm going to have to overcome. And so that is it. I want to now show my benchmarks on my PC. So give me 1 second to type in NVIDIA control panel. So I've got a RTX 3070 in this computer, which is surprisingly and quickly outdated, despite the fact that I bought it about a year and a half ago. And then on my processor, I have 96 gigabytes of RAM and a i7 10700 CPU. And with those specs, it is running at about 32 frames a second. And I can still get in here close. I find the more I ignore, actually, the more it improves my frame rate. Thank you for watching, everybody. In the next couple days, I'm going to make a video with me updating this JDC1 fixture to behave more like this ROX S2 where I have pixel control. And I will show you guys the process of doing that. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you want to find this fixture pack, it's currently on the Patreon page for a simple supporter tier. And go pick it up, go use it. I will be updating the pack progressively as I go though. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope to see some of you in the future. Bye.